Here in Illinois, nearly half of those released from prison end up back behind bars within 3 years. Former inmate Arnold Julian says he left prison with little more than the clothes on his back.
I had a 9-year sentence that I did 4.5 years on. You give me a $30 check and tell me, make it. Figuring out where your next dollar gonna come from to buy your next meal. That's like the biggest barrier that people are faced with.
And Nellie, what kind of a barrier is that for people just out of prison? I mean, as he said, he got the clothes on his back and $30.
It's a huge barrier. You know, how can you expect someone to get a job when they have nowhere to sleep and they've got no resources whatsoever in terms of a support system? So again, the work that we do at A Safe Haven really helps transition people with a soft landing back into society by providing the right wraparound services that are unique to that individual. And with our staffing business that we have, employers can actually hire ex-offenders on a temporary basis and then make the decision if they want to take them on permanently. But getting that, you know, something on their resume, getting them that work ethic, crucial to helping them really transition back into society in a real sustainable way. We actually had a contract with the Department of Labor for about 3 years that was very specific to ex-offenders. We had to work with ex-offenders coming out of the system within the last 6 months and get them into our, you know, job training programs and doing all the other services. And what we found and what they found in their studies on us is that we had an extremely high job placement rate, thankfully about 85%, but more importantly, we had an 87% retention rate for ex-offenders that were placed into jobs, and that was for a 9-month period of time.
One of the specific proposals that's come up is that prisoners, when they are released from prison here in Illinois, should get a state identification card. Why, Bryant, why is that important?
Well, it's a very simple change, but you need a state identification, for example, just under federal law to be legally employed. You need identification to find housing, to get utility service, really for the basic things that everyone else relies on to have a normal life. You need some sort of way to prove your identity. So many ex-offenders come out and don't have any way to prove they are who they say they are, essentially, even though they've been sitting in IDOC. Government knows who they are. So there really is this large gap that keeps them out of jobs once they reenter. And the longer they keep them out of work, the more likely it is that they'll recidivate.
The other specific proposal from these recommendations in this commission is that we should consider sealing records for a certain time or make it easier for prisoners to seal their records. Is that fair to the rest of society, Philip?
If the person earns it, yes. We all make mistakes, and if somebody proves themselves over time with the track record of ethical conduct within the community, by all means, they should be. And a lot of these decisions should be left, I think, to employers. And
we're talking about the judicial system actually being able to seal the past incarceration records of people. Doesn't the public have a right to know if somebody was in prison or not?
To an extent, but at what point does it become, is it really relevant?
Well, Nellie, how do you balance that, the interests of the prisoner against the larger interests of society who may very well want to know if somebody's been in prison or not?
Well, it is a balancing act, and it is ultimately, I think, important to reveal, information that may be detrimental to a business. So if someone is caught, check fraud and you're putting them in accounting jobs, then perhaps that's something that's important for them to know. But we were having a conversation earlier about so many of the good intentions of so many of these laws with licensure, for example, and preventing people to get licensed to work in certain fields have nothing to do with the careers. So I think it is, case by case. If something happened 20 years ago, you were 18 years old, everyone makes mistakes.
You should be able to seal that.
Yeah.
We only have a few seconds left. If you could, each of you in 10 seconds, give us what you think is the most important reform that needs to be made very quickly.
Most people expect that when you go to prison that's your punishment, that's the sentence you serve. So I think that sealing reform is important because you should be able to, for nonviolent offenses, say that I've done my time, I've paid my debt back to society, and I should be able to move on with my life, find work, and support myself and my family.
Philip, you get the last word here. The most important reform in 10 seconds or less.
Parsimony, making punishments what they need to be to get the job done and nothing more. We've gone way overboard, and we need to come back to reality.